If you are over 60 and you have been walking regularly, eating less, and still watching your belly slowly get bigger, I want you to stop and hear this, because what is happening inside your body is not what most people think it is. This is not ordinary fat. This is not the kind of fat that just sits under the skin. The fat that builds around your midsection after age 60 is wrapping itself around your liver, your kidneys, your heart, your pancreas, organs you cannot live without. It is called visceral fat, and in more than 2 decades of working with older patients, I can tell you without hesitation that it is one of the most dangerous, most misunderstood, and most underestimated health threats facing adults over 60 today. Here is what almost no one tells you. You can have a normal body weight. Your doctor can look at your chart and say everything looks fine. And visceral fat can still be accumulating, silently driving up your insulin resistance, inflaming your arteries, straining your heart, and quietly stealing years from your life. But here is what I also know after all these years in medicine. The right food-specific, targeted foods can begin pulling that fat away from your organs. Not by starving you, not by eliminating everything you enjoy, but by working with your body's natural metabolic signals to shift where it stores and burns fuel. Today, I am going to walk you through 8 foods that science has repeatedly linked to visceral fat reduction, especially in adults over 60. I am going to explain exactly why each one works, what it does inside your body at the cellular level, and how you can start using it today. This is not a generic diet list. This is senior-specific, metabolically targeted information that your 12-minute office visit almost never has time to cover. Stay with me because the last item on this list is the one that ties all of this together, and most people have never heard it explained this way. I am Dr. William, and for over 2 decades I have worked closely with adults in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond. I have watched the same pattern repeat itself in patient after patient. They exercise more than they used to. They eat less than they used to. And yet the belly keeps growing. They blame themselves. They think their willpower has failed. But the truth that nobody bothers to sit down and fully explain is that the body of a 65-year-old is operating under a completely different hormonal and metabolic reality than the body of a 40-year-old, and using 40-year-old diet advice on a 65-year-old body is like using a map of the wrong city. You are not going to get where you need to go. After age 60, 3 major shifts occur that make visceral fat accumulation almost inevitable unless you specifically counteract them. First, estrogen and testosterone levels decline, and these hormones are powerful fat distribution regulators. When they drop, the body moves fat storage directly around the abdominal organs. Second, muscle mass declines. This is called sarcopenia, and muscle is your body's most active fat-burning tissue, so losing it means losing your metabolic engine. Third, insulin sensitivity declines. Your cells begin to resist insulin's signal, blood sugar stays elevated longer, and the liver converts that excess glucose into fat stored right around your organs. Visceral fat is not just a storage problem, it is an active problem. Visceral fat secretes inflammatory chemicals called cytokines that spread through the bloodstream, damage blood vessel linings, disrupt liver function, and make insulin resistance worse. It creates a cycle. The more visceral fat you have, the more inflamed your metabolism becomes, and the harder it is to lose that visceral fat. This is why simply eating fewer calories often does not work after 60. You are not fighting a simple energy equation, you are fighting a metabolic and inflammatory environment that is working against you, and the foods I am about to share with you are specifically designed to address that environment, not just cut calories. Before I get into the first food, I want to ask you something. Drop your age in the comments below, whether you are 62 or 78 or 84. And if you find this kind of senior-specific, doctor-backed information valuable, please subscribe now. Alright, let us get into the 8 foods. The first food is fatty fish, and I do not just mean eating it occasionally, I mean making it a consistent, weekly part of your plate. Salmon, sardines, mackerel, herring, trout, these are not just good sources of protein. They contain something specific that directly targets visceral fat in the aging body. Fatty fish are loaded with long-chain omega-3 fatty acids, specifically EPA and DHA. You have probably heard that omega-3s are good for the heart, and that is true. But what rarely gets explained is the mechanism behind why they reduce visceral fat in older adults specifically. Visceral fat actively grows when inflammation is high. Omega-3 fatty acids work by blocking the production of pro-inflammatory cytokines, the very chemical signals that visceral fat itself produces to make the problem worse. In simple terms, omega-3s help quiet down the inflammatory fire that visceral fat uses to protect itself. They interrupt the cycle. A study published in the British Journal of Nutrition found that omega-3 supplementation combined with even moderate physical activity led to significantly greater reductions in visceral fat compared to either intervention alone. The omega-3 is from fatty fish essentially amplify the fat-burning signal your walking is already sending. Aim for 2 to 3 servings of fatty fish per week. If you are not a fish lover, can sardines or salmon pack the same metabolic punch with far less effort? Think of this not as a diet rule but as a prescription, because for your body after 60, it genuinely is. The second food is avocado, and this one surprises a lot of my patients the first time I mention it. For years, people over 60 were told to avoid avocados, too much fat, too many calories. That advice was wrong. Avocado is one of the most metabolically intelligent foods you can eat after 60. Avocados are rich in monounsaturated fats, particularly oleic acid, the same fat found in olive oil. Research from Penn State University found that diets higher in monounsaturated fat led to significant reductions in visceral fat compared to diets high in refined carbohydrates. In simple terms, the fat in avocado tells your body to store less fat around your organs. One medium avocado delivers about 9 to 10 grams of fiber, and fiber after 60 is not just about digestion. Soluble fiber feeds the beneficial bacteria in your gut, and those bacteria produce short-chain fatty acids that directly reduce insulin resistance. Anything that improves insulin sensitivity is working to reduce visceral fat at the root level. I had a patient, David, 73, from rural Ohio, who came to me with pre-diabetic blood sugar, a waistline that had grown 5 inches in 3 years, and energy so low he had stopped walking his dogs. We added half an avocado with eggs at breakfast, and within 6 weeks his fasting sugar had dropped, his afternoon energy had improved, and he had lost 2 inches off his waist. Eat half an avocado 3 to 4 times a week, add it to eggs, salads, or simply with a little salt and lemon. Do not fear the fat, fear the refined carbs. Because that is where the real danger lives. The third food is leafy greens, and I want to explain this at a level that goes far beyond basic nutrition advice. Spinach, kale, Swiss chard, collard greens, arugula, these are not just nutrient-dense foods, they are metabolic regulators. Leafy greens are extraordinarily high in magnesium, and magnesium deficiency is something I see constantly in patients over 65. The kidneys become less efficient at retaining magnesium as we age, leaving many older adults quietly, chronically low in this mineral. Magnesium plays a direct role in over 300 enzymatic reactions in the body, including the reactions that regulate insulin signaling. Low magnesium means impaired insulin sensitivity, and impaired insulin sensitivity means more fat being deposited around the organs. Leafy greens also contain natural dietary nitrates, which your body converts into nitric oxide, a compound that relaxes blood vessels, improves circulation, and reduces inflammation throughout the system. Think of it this way. Visceral fat thrives in a hot, inflamed, insulin-resistant environment, and leafy greens systematically cool that environment down. Aim for 2 to 3 cups of dark leafy greens every single day, not occasionally, not when you feel like it, but daily. Add them to eggs in the morning, build your lunch around a large salad, and fold spinach into soups and stews at dinner. This is one of the most affordable and powerful things you can do for your metabolic health after 60. The fourth food is eggs, and I want to be clear. Eggs are one of the most complete, most bioavailable sources of protein available to the human body. And protein at each meal is critically important for visceral fat reduction after 64 reasons that go beyond just building muscle. When you eat a high-protein breakfast like 2 or 3 eggs, your body releases lower amounts of insulin compared to a high-carbohydrate breakfast. Less insulin means less fat storage signal being sent to the organs. It also means that ghrelin, the hunger hormone, is suppressed for longer, so you feel full, eat less through the rest of the day, and your blood sugar stays more stable. For someone over 60 dealing with declining insulin sensitivity, this morning stability is enormously important. But the reason I specifically include eggs rather than just saying eat more protein is this. Eggs contain choline. Choline is a nutrient directly involved in fat metabolism in the liver. When liver cells become overwhelmed by fat, a condition called non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, the liver begins exporting that fat into the bloodstream and depositing it around other organs. Choline helps the liver package and export fat properly, preventing that dangerous accumulation. Most adults over 60 are not getting nearly enough choline. 2 to 3 whole eggs in the morning, not egg whites. The whole egg provides choline, high-quality protein, and essential fats that support your hormones, your brain, and your metabolism all at once. If you have been skipping the yolk because of old cholesterol advice, I would encourage you to speak with your doctor about the most current evidence because for most older adults, the yolk is where the real value lives. Now this next one, the fifth food, is backed by some of the most compelling research on visceral fat in older adults specifically, and most people dramatically underestimate it. That food is walnuts. Walnuts are unique among nuts. They are the only commonly eaten nut that is a rich source of plant-based omega-3 fatty acids, specifically alpha-linolenic acid. A landmark study from the University of California, Davis found that adults who consumed a walnut-rich diet showed measurable reductions in visceral fat independent of total caloric intake. The researchers concluded that the specific combination of polyunsaturated fats, fiber, and plant sterols in walnuts was creating a metabolic effect that reduced fat deposition in the abdominal region specifically. When you lose weight after 60 through general calorie restriction, you lose a mixture of fat and muscle, but interventions that specifically target visceral fat help you preserve more muscle while losing more of the dangerous fat. That is the kind of result that actually extends functional independence, one small handful about. A quarter cup of walnuts per day is all it takes. Add them to oatmeal in the morning, put them in a salad at lunch, or eat a small handful as an afternoon snack instead of crackers. That one swap alone, crackers for walnuts, is a meaningful upgrade for anyone serious about reducing visceral fat. The sixth food may be the most important one in this entire video for anyone dealing with blood sugar problems alongside visceral fat, and that food is berries. Blueberries, strawberries, raspberries, blackberries. These are not just pleasant fruits with some antioxidants. They are metabolically active foods that alter the way your body handles sugar, manages inflammation, and controls where fat is stored. Berries contain a class of plant compounds called polyphenols, particularly anthocyanins, which give them their deep red, blue, and purple colors. Research published in the Journal of Nutritional Biochemistry found that anthocyanins directly activate a metabolic pathway that improves insulin sensitivity in fat cells, in simple terms. The compounds in berries help your fat cells listen to insulin again. And when fat cells become more insulin sensitive, the liver is far less likely to produce and deposit new visceral fat. Berries also deliver remarkable amounts of fiber relative to their sugar content, which slows digestion, blunts the blood sugar spike after a meal, and keeps insulin levels lower through the morning or afternoon. Eat a half to a full cup of mixed berries daily, fresh or frozen, because frozen berries often contain higher levels of polyphenols since they are picked and frozen at peak ripeness. Consider this your daily anti-inflammatory, anti-visceral fat supplement, except it comes in a form your body recognizes and uses beautifully. The seventh food is green tea, and most dietary discussions leave this out entirely when it comes to visceral fat reduction. What you drink after 60 has a measurable effect on your metabolic rate, your fat-burning capacity, and your insulin response. Green tea contains a compound called igp-galacatechin gallate, which is a catechin that has been studied extensively for its effects on fat metabolism. IG increases the activity of a fat-burning enzyme called lipase while simultaneously inhibiting the development of new fat cells. In practical terms, it helps your body burn existing fat more efficiently while slowing the creation of new fat deposits. A meta-analysis published in the International Journal of Obesity reviewed multiple controlled studies and found that green tea consumption was associated with significant reductions in waist circumference and visceral fat area, especially when combined with modest exercise. Green tea also contains the amino acid L-theanine, which has a calming effect on the nervous system. Chronic stress elevates cortisol, and elevated cortisol is one of the most powerful drivers of visceral fat accumulation in adults over 60. L-theanine gently lowers the stress response, which reduces cortisol, which reduces the hormonal signal to store fat around the organs. Drink 2 to 3 cups of green tea per day. Brew it with water that is hot but not boiling, around 170 to 180 degrees Fahrenheit, and steep for 2 to 3 minutes. Do not add sugar, and replace your afternoon coffee with green tea whenever you can. Your metabolism will notice the difference over time. And now we arrive at the eighth and final food, and I want to take my time here because this one changes how you should think about eating for the rest of your life. That food is legumes, lentils, black beans, chickpeas, kidney beans, edamame. No single food category does more things right for the aging body when it comes to visceral fat than legumes. First, legumes are the richest natural source of resistant starch available in the human diet. Resistant starch is a type of carbohydrate that your small intestine cannot digest. Instead, it travels to the large intestine where it feeds your beneficial gut bacteria. Those bacteria ferment it and produce short-chain fatty acids, specifically butyrate, which directly improve insulin sensitivity, reduce gut inflammation, and Lower the amount of glucose the liver releases into the bloodstream. Remember what I said at the very beginning, the liver becomes a glucose factory in people with insulin resistance, and butyrate helps shut that factory down. Second, legumes are extraordinarily high in both soluble fiber and plant protein. A cup of lentils provides about 18 grams of protein and 15 to 16 grams of fiber. That combination sends a powerful satiety signal to the brain that lasts for hours, reducing the cravings and overeating that drive visceral fat accumulation in the first place. Third, research from the Archives of Internal Medicine found that replacing just 2 servings per week of red meat or refined carbohydrates with legumes produced measurable improvements in blood sugar control, waist circumference, and cardiovascular risk markers without any other dietary changes. Just 2 swaps per week, that is. The kind of result that is achievable, and that is the kind of result that changes lives. I had a patient named Eleanor, 77 years old, living alone, managing type 2 diabetes with 2 medications, and increasingly worried about losing her independence. She had been told to eat fewer carbohydrates, which is reasonable, but nobody had explained to her that not all carbohydrates are the same. We added lentils to her diet 3 times a week, and within 3 months her fasting glucose had dropped by 22 points. Her doctor reduced one of her medications, and she told me she felt clearer, steadier, and more energetic than she had in years. That is what this is really about, not the number on the scale, not a lab result, but Eleanor being able to stay in her home, cook her own meals, and live her life. That is what reducing visceral fat is actually protecting. Now, before I wrap up, I want to spend just a few minutes on something important, because no food list works. In isolation. If you are serious about reducing visceral fat after 60, there are 4 lifestyle practices that will multiply the power of everything I just told you. The first is resistance training, and I do not mean lifting heavy weights at a gym. I mean any activity that challenges your muscles against resistance. Bodyweight squats, resistance. Bands, lifting groceries, climbing stairs. Even to 2-3 sessions per week of simple resistance exercise rebuilds muscle tissue, raises your resting metabolic rate, and directly reduces visceral fat accumulation. Muscle is metabolically hungry tissue. The more you have, the more fat your body burns at rest. The second lifestyle practice is walking after meals. A 10 to 15-minute walk after lunch or dinner significantly reduces the blood sugar spike that follows eating, which reduces the insulin response, which reduces the fat storage signal. This is one of the most powerful, most accessible, and most underused blood sugar tools available to anyone over 60. Walk after you eat. Make it non-negotiable. The third is sleep. Sleep deprivation directly raises cortisol and disrupts the hormones that regulate hunger and fat storage. Research has shown that sleeping less than 6 hours per night is independently associated with higher visceral fat volumes, even in people who exercise and eat well. 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep is not a luxury for someone over 60. It is part of the metabolic treatment plan. The fourth lifestyle practice is stress management. Chronic stress floods the body with cortisol, and cortisol's primary biological instruction is to store fat around the abdominal organs. Daily practices that lower cortisol: gentle walking in nature, deep breathing, social connection, prayer, meditation are not soft add-ons to a health plan. They are direct interventions against visceral fat accumulation. Let me bring this all together. Visceral fat after 60 is not simply about eating too much and exercising too little. It is about a fundamentally changed metabolic environment, one shaped by hormonal shifts, muscle loss, insulin resistance, and chronic low-grade inflammation. Standard advice does not address that environment directly, but the 8 foods I shared with you today do. Fatty fish for omega-3 anti-inflammatory protection. Avocado for monounsaturated fats and fiber that improve insulin sensitivity. Leafy greens for magnesium, nitrates, and metabolic cooling. Eggs for complete protein, choline, and liver support. Walnuts for plant-based polyunsaturated fats that specifically target abdominal fat distribution. Berries for anthocyanins that restore insulin sensitivity in fat cells. Green tea for egg and cortisol reduction, and legumes, the great metabolic multitaskers for resistant starch, butyrate production, fiber, and sustained blood sugar stability. You do not need to add all 8 at once. Start with 2. Add a handful of walnuts and a cup of berries this week. Next week, replace 1 dinner with lentil soup. The following week, add fatty fish twice. Small, consistent changes made in the right direction create enormous metabolic shifts over time. The body you are living in right now at 60, at 70, at 75, or 80 is still capable of meaningful change. The metabolism is not fixed. The inflammation is not permanent. The insulin resistance is not locked in. I have seen patients in their 80s reverse prediabetes, shrink their waistlines, reduce their medications, and reclaim energy they thought was gone for good. That does not happen by accident. It happens when someone gives them the right information and helps them act on it. That is why I make these videos, because you deserve better than a 12-minute appointment and a pamphlet. If this video helped you today, please share it with someone you care about over 60, a friend, a sibling, a spouse, a parent. This is the kind of information that can genuinely change how someone spends the next decade of their life. And if you found this valuable, subscribe to this channel. I put out new senior-focused, doctor-backed health information every week covering blood sugar, muscle health, brain aging, kidney health, sleep, and everything else that matters to people in their 60s, 70s, and beyond. Leave me a comment below. Tell me your age, tell me which of these 8 foods you are going to start with, and tell me what you are struggling with most. I read every comment, and your question may become the next video. One last thing: if you wake up every morning with a higher blood sugar reading than you expect, even if you ate well the night before, I made a video specifically explaining why that happens. It is called the dawn phenomenon, and it affects millions of adults over 60 without them ever realizing it. That video is next, and it will completely change how you think about your morning blood sugar routine. Take care of yourself. You have earned it.